Hello, welcome and welcome back. This is Jacob and today we are gonna be continuing the module short story narrations for the various operators in Arknights. Today with the one, or rather the first one for Operator Siege. Now as always we are gonna take a look at the module short story first, and then we shall take a look at what the module upgrades. And like I just said, this is gonna be the first one. Siege does have two modules, and considering the imagery on the second one plus the title of the second one being the first WoW, I'm probably gonna do this one at a later time, more than likely around the release of the next main story, aka chapter 13. Considering the title of this is the first WoW, the imagery being a crown, some old very important scroll looking stamps and so on and so forth, this looks very much more important to the main story, so I'm gonna wait until that gets released and cover that one then in both a separate video, and depending on how important it is to the narrative, maybe even included in the main story narration and character voice acting that I do here on the channel, so we'll see about that. And also, before we head into our story for today, if you are someone who is still experiencing the story of Arknights and are either just now slowly diving into Act 2 or are still in the beginning of the story of this module's story will be quite more significant to you once you get to Act 2, and especially when you catch up to something like chapters 11 and 12 of the story. But yeah, anyway. The short story and the module itself are called Candy Box. And this is how it goes. Vina sits atop the roof, staring at the clouds above that hang ever crushingly low. It's a month in Londinium where rain comes every evening. Not too badly, it's a fine drizzle, nothing that inconveniences anyone rushing home from work, but it stirs the scent of the ground into the air. Rotting wood, the rankling smell of fins, and needless to say, sweat. The borough of Norbert never smells much like a port of Londinium. All the bigger logistic warehouses have relocated to the north side, and the factories and markets have gone with, leaving behind a plate full of refuse no other borough wants, and the people with nowhere else to go. A shout comes from the boxing gym downstairs. Sounds like Indra's won again. It's a night of celebration for the Glasgow gang. Vina led the lot charging into the underground casino on Mariner Road this afternoon, and scared the Ronnie brothers right out of Norpor wholesale. After that, the buildings surrounding were all Glasgow's. Morgan got all worked up and hefted barrels of booze over. Needed to celebrate properly, according to her. Said she got this stuff from that top fancy pub on the corner, paid loads for it. Got bared worried she'd been taken in. With enough drink down them, the lot all paraded up arm in arm and chanted her name, Siege, so loud the whole street could hear. How much of a conqueror does subduing a few gangs really make you? When she first got that name, Vina honestly could have laughed or died of embarrassment, maybe both. None of Indra's lot knew her background, and she wasn't even hiding it on purpose. She just never found the right time to share all. Norbert and Auchterich were like two different countries. No one cared whose parents were who here. The most was the one time when the police got hold of some Glasgow and brought them into the station. It was routine questioning from the coppers. What race was she? She stared at Officer beaming from ear to ear, dead in the eye, and on some ridiculous impulse answered, Aslan. That threw him for a loop. And then he had her by the scruff, trying to tug her head into the table. Vina sat calm, didn't bend her neck one bit. Oh, he turned red. His hands shook and shook, as tends to happen on a diet of grease and drink, until he finally turned from trying violence to harsh words instead. Threatened her, saying she wouldn't step out of this station for the rest of the month, talking daft shit like that. The piddling hoodlum she was. She was out the next day. Morgan and Indra fetched her there, Indra telling her how she sent the Baron's boys running for the hills with a Molotov, Morgan saying she had to mediate like crazy and it cost a pretty penny. Past the street corner, Vina couldn't help but take a look. Absolutely nothing there watching her. No people, nor giant creatures. That flash of gold must have just been the sun blinding her eyes. Vina couldn't tell you how long she's gone without seeing Gawain now. Her teacher might well be everywhere at once. At a fried fin stand, mingling in the boxing gym, maybe up in the clouds above. Could be anywhere. The moment that occurs to her, something makes her twitch for no reason at all, and unconsciously she goes to reach for another bitter lollipop to stick in her mouth. But once she does, she finds the metal box emptied, completely vacant and light as a feather. Somehow, someway, her heart feels just as airy, like she's losing her balance. She'd better find something heavier to shove in there next time, Vina thinks. Wouldn't go wrong with some rivets from the construction site. Somewhere behind, Baird calls for her. Shoving her candy box back in her trouser pocket, Vina grins a little and turns around, sauntering back over to the clamor of voices that was, is, and will be sieges. And that is our short story. Like I said at the beginning, if you're just now diving into Act 2, or have finished Act 2, yeah, think back. Once again, think back on the story. But again, if you're diving into the Act 2 of the main story currently and are going through it, keep the story in mind. Keep the story in mind and keep the name Baird in mind. You will get more context on that. But now, let's take a look at what the module does. But first, traits and talents on default. So, trait. She is a Vanguard, so blocks 2 enemies. Talent, King of Beasts. All Vanguard operators attack and defense plus 8%. And yes, this is affecting herself as well. The second talent is Crushing. Obtain 1 skill point when an enemy in the 4 surrounding tiles is killed. And that means by her or anybody else, and 4 surrounding tiles is pretty much north, south, west, east, or top, bottom, left, right. Now, what does the module upgrade? First off, the attack and defense go up by default, and we gain an additional trait. Now she will gain 8% attack and defense when she is blocking enemies. So yeah, whenever she is in direct contact with an enemy, her attack value and defense value will jump up by 8%. And yes, this is stacking with the already existing passive of the 8% down here. Now, what do we get on Stage 2? Stage 2, that very same passive will get another buff. So King of Beasts will stay at a 8% defense and attack buff, as it was already, but it gains an additional line that says, additionally increases this unit's attack and defense by 6%. So on Stage 2, Indra herself will gain another buff, another permanently active buff of 6% for attack and defense. On Stage 3, this buff will go to an 8%. So it's basically a triple 8. You have on the traits, you have an 8% for attack and defense when she is blocking, 8% by default for herself and other Vanguard units, and now another 8% just for herself. And yes, all 3 of these are stacking on Indra. On Siege, pardon. But yeah. She will have basically 8 and 8% active from King of Beasts continuously on herself. And then on top of that, every time she makes direct contact with an enemy, because she's a Vanguard that attacks on her own field where she is placed and on the little square in front of her, another 8%. So 8 at 8, which is funny. It kind of fits the theme of a candy box when you think of it. You take one candy, then you take another, and then you take another. But yeah, that is the module for now. I did take a peek at what the other module does, but I will give my opinion for which I think is better between the two once we get to that one. For now, this will be it. So thank you for watching, if you like this video, please consider leaving a like. If you're new to Arknights and haven't had the opportunity yet to go through the main story like I said earlier, consider subscribing and look at the playlist for the main story that I have here on the channel. It is fully narrated, voice acted, and so on and so forth, with extra details here and there to broaden the knowledge of everything that comes with the game and give you more context. So consider subscribing. And if you want to support me and my work more here on the channel, or more directly rather to put, there are memberships, 3 different tiers, pardon. And no video, like I always say, will be ever behind the paid memberships. It is purely there just to support me and my work. So all I can say is thank you very much for everything. Hope you have a fantastic day wherever you are, and I will see you in the next one. Until then, bye bye.